Welcome to the Financial Armor Show. My name is Brad Cooper, president of Cooper Financial Investments, and your host for the day. Also, I want to bring in and invite my amazing, awesome co-host, Tony Shore. How are you doing today, Tony?
I am doing great. Thanks,
Yes.
Brad. I've had a great weekend. Last weekend was great for me. We were talking before the show, and I had to admit, I don't know if I should admit this to our listening audience out there, but I attended my 40th high
Wow.
school reunion. That means just one thing, Brad. I'm actually old. I've been denying it. I've convinced myself that I was not aging. And then I went to my 40th class reunion. I'm like, I must be old. 40 years since I graduated.
It's how you look at things, Tony. The way I look at it is you're so brilliant and smart. You probably graduated when you were, what, 7, 8 years old from high school. So, you know, to celebrate
No.
40 years and still be 40 years old, that's pretty impressive.
Well, and in my hometown, most high school reunions for classes, most have them on this weekend in September because it's the town's big festival, which they have every year called
Yes.
Turkey Day.
Oh,
They have
wow.
Worthington Turkey Days, believe it or not. And our class, the classes that are older, like 40 years, you ride on a float and it says Worthington High School Trojans class of 1984. And we're on this long flatbed trailer all sitting on hay bales. And when the parade ended, we took a right to circle back around to where it started, and we're all riding along going, "Oh, that went well." And we saw people we knew. And we went by our old high school. It's still the same high school. They still use it in
Wow.
town. And look, that's where we went to high school. And I go, attention, everybody! Pay this. This is the building where I got an F in math. Everybody, look at the building where I failed a math class, and I did. But I did great in all my other classes, and I made up for it. But just one math class I was having a problem with. And that's why I work with you, Brad. For the numbers, you're the guy.
Well, if that's just one class, congratulations, Tony. That's pretty impressive.
I
Oh,
did really well in my other classes. I was a pretty good student, but math has never been
yes.
my thing. But I love finance, which is funny.
Right.
And everybody gets a kick out of that. But yeah, I really rely heavily on Brad Cooper for financial advice because he's the numbers guy in this. I'm just here to ask questions.
Well, anyway, well, I'm just thinking Turkey Day. Last week we talked about what the state Minnesota fair.
Yes, the
That
Minnesota State Fair. Yep.
and all the food there. How was Turkey Day
Turkey Day is
festival
is
food?
hilarious. I mean, Worthington is this crazy town in farm country, and they actually have turkey races before the
Oh my
parade down the
goodness.
main street, and it's hilarious because, turkeys, they race them, but they always go off. They don't run in a straight line. They go off into the crowd, and the sidewalks are packed because it's before the parade. They run off into the crowd, scaring little children. I don't know why they do it, but they do it.
Oh
But the
wow.
food there was great too. I will tell you, there is a large Hispanic community in Worthington, and the food trucks, the tacos, the
Oh my
burritos, the
gosh.
Mexican food, which is some of my favorite food. It is the best you've ever had. So we ate well while we were there.
Wow,
Yeah.
making me hungry. I tell
Yeah.
you what, in addition to the great financial advice that we give on a weekly basis, I'm thinking if any of our listeners are wanting to make a trip to Minnesota, not familiar with Minnesota, just send in your questions to us. I'll have Tony answer those, and I can promise if you make that trip, which I've been to Minnesota many, many times, actually next week, I'm really looking forward to spending the week in Minnesota. I can promise you one thing. Good food.
Yeah, yeah. There's
And
great
good
food
people.
here. Yeah, yeah. You've been to Manny's, I'm sure. Manny's
Yes.
Steakhouse up here.
Oh, yes.
You have to eat there at least once in your life. That's for sure.
Yes, very, very good.
Yeah.
Well, things are going well. Busy here in sunny Arizona. The weather's starting to cool down, and I can't believe we're facing soon the last quarter of 2024. And
Yeah.
time flies so fast. We've talked about many, many topics, but I'm excited about today's topic. Basically, I titled it Your Year End Financial To Do List. And
Okay.
whether you're retired or maybe you're still working, a lot of great information today to share with a lot of people that are still working, wanting to reach that destination of retirement, and some just really good sound advice, a lot of common sense, but maybe some new information that you may find helpful. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today, Tony, is coming from an article from Bankrate
Sure.
titled Greg McBride's End of the Year Checklist. 15 tasks you must complete. So we'll try to get through those today
Okay.
and talk about the many things that is so important when it comes to your money. And one
Yeah.
thing that I learned many, many years ago, and either money will control you or you will control your money. It's your choice. And
Right.
throughout my many decades of my life, I've been on both sides before, especially before I got in this industry where money controlled me,
Right.
and made a lot of dumb decisions and choices.
Yep. We
But
all have. We all went through those days, most of us anyway.
yeah, I'll never forget here, maybe 2 months ago, I met with some clients' children that came in the office, and they were in their 20s and just going through that challenging time out of college. They have debt, and they weren't taught a whole lot in high school about money. And it was so fun, Tony, just visiting with them, and me saying, do as I say, not as what I've done. Here's the mistakes that I've made,
Right.
and maybe I can help you minimize some of the mistakes out there that you may face, and get you to your goal much quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just it. So, what's one of the first things as far as year end financial things to do that we all need to work on? What would you say is first on the list?
Well, the first thing, it just, I'm laughing because I just saw a video online of a wife coming into the kitchen to talk to her husband and show the three beautiful outfits that she just bought, and three pairs of shoes. And once she approached the back, he was on his computer working on their budget. She quickly turned around and went back to the bedroom. But I share that with you because it's reviewing spending patterns. And how has your spending been the last 12 months? Has there been any unexpected expenses? Is there any expenses that you maybe splurged on or overspent? What we find, Tony, with a lot of people we sit down with, is really the number one expense that I say is thrown out and wasted is restaurants. With
Uh,
inflation being so high, the
yeah.
cost of food, especially the
In and
nicer
out.
restaurants like Manny's
Yeah.
and others. I mean, a family of four could easily drop three, four, $500,
Yeah. It's
and
crazy.
it is. And after reviewing, their financials, their budgets, and their spending, and having this discussion, uh, this particular couple in their 20s were spending like 2,500 to 3,000 per month just eating
Oh,
out.
oh,
So that's a house
yikes.
payment
Yeah.
for a lot of folks.
Yeah, it is.
So
Yeah.
review those and use that information from the last, 9 to 12 months to build out a spending plan, a budget. Goes back to that nasty B word, that
Yeah.
budget for 2025.
Yeah.
And realize, as you're skimming through everything, what sticks out and what's the pattern. What I love about banks and credit cards companies, not a whole lot I love about them, but one thing is the way
Right.
they organize your statements and financials. A
The
lot of them will break
statements are
down.
helpful to
They'll
see
break
what you've.
down restaurants and car expense and housing expense. So they do a lot of the legwork for you. And there's a lot of great resources and apps out there that will even do a better job.
Yeah.
And so that's number one. Another area which I know a lot of our clients that are already retired, the majority do not have this issue, but I'm finding the younger generation, maybe 20s, 30s, 40s age group, it's credit card debt.
Mm.
And the average credit card today on the high side, I've seen 20 to 30%, closer to 30%
Yeah,
interest.
they are.
And that's called revolving credit. I'm going to go back to, my beginning years where I did a lot of education. And I used the example back then. If you had a $2,000 credit card and you make the minimum payments, and back then the interest rate was 19.8%. Now it's at least 10 to 20 points higher. So based on 19.8%, $2,000 credit card debt, just making the minimum payments, how many years do you think it would take to pay that off?
To pay off just $2,000?
Yes,
I'm not sure with just making minimum payments. What was it?
39 years.
39 years to pay off $2,000.
And that's just making the bare minimum payment, which a
Oh,
lot of times does not cover all the interest. And normally, credit card interest rates compound on a daily basis, not a
yeah.
monthly or annual basis.
Yeah,
So, but on the topic of credit cards, if you have discipline, once you have control over your money and your debt, credit cards can be a great tool to use for
yeah,
points, for cash back, as long as you pay that credit card off every single month. In my case, Tony, I practice what I preach. We have a business credit card. I put all my business expenses on. I get cash back,
that's nice.
hundreds and hundreds of dollars per month. But I normally go in and make a payment on my credit card a minimum of maybe 5, 6, 7 times a
Yeah,
month. Here's the reason why. I want to make sure that that doesn't carry over to the next month and I'm hit with 19, 20% interest.
yeah. Yeah, you gotta make sure you're constantly paying it off to avoid that interest, and if you have the discipline to do that and the ability to do that, then you can take advantage of credit cards and make them work for you, but it's easier said than done. Not everybody has the
Oh,
discipline to do that, right?
and the industry makes it so easy. And I blame the industry. When my wife and I were going through admissions at college in Columbia, Missouri,
Oh, okay.
and we were going through the lines at the bookstore and getting all of our supplies, there was no less than 6 credit card applications
Oh, yeah.
pre-approved.
Yep. Yep.
And these companies, not going to mention any names, these companies were giving credit cards to all these college students, including myself, including my wife, who had no job, who had no experience.
Right.
And so that's, where it starts with a lot of, folks today,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, it is, and, I also blame, Brad, that education. I think, in schools, they should start teaching personal finance in basically 7th grade, I think, at the latest, 7th grade, and then every year it gets more and more advanced. I think it should be required just like reading and math, personal finance.
I agree. I mean, that's going to be so much more impactful, preparing you for real day life. And
Yeah. Yeah, and I just not that there aren't personal finances
right,
classes. People say, "Well, my son had a personal finance class in high school." Yeah, my kids did too. It was offered, usually it's an elective, so it's not necessarily
right.
something they have to take. And even school systems where it's required, it's one class senior, junior, or senior year. And that's
Wow.
not gonna cut it, right? I mean, there's so much to learn, as you know, right, Brad? I mean,
I know. We just had this discussion about a week ago. I think a couple people are talking to, they were required to take trigonometry and and a lot of advanced math courses,
yeah,
which of course,
trigonometry. Ooh,
yes. And I said, well, how's that working for you today? Are you using that every day in your job? And they started laughing at me.
yeah.
And is there a reason for that? For a lot of occupations, yes, but for the majority, most likely not. So
Yeah.
why not? Yes,
Calculus is a big
calculus.
one
Oh my
that they
gosh, that was
require, and it's
yes,
tough. And, math is good for problem solving skills, so you have to have some math, but when it comes to the more advanced math classes, they require that, but the people don't know how to, balance an account, how to keep track of their money. They
right.
don't know the risk of credit cards or paying off debt. They don't know the basics of finances and how important it is to save for the future and have a 401k and retirement account and max those out. They just don't teach these things.
No. And I have some, I guess, my own theories or opinions, if you will, Tony. Over the last 30 years, have helped a lot of professors, a lot of school teachers, and the majority, I'm not going to lump them all together, but the majority were not any place where they need to be financially,
Sure.
and they were not taught.
Right.
And therefore, turning around and really wanting to teach an area that you never experienced or don't know about is pretty sad. But
Yeah.
I agree. Another area, Tony, which we've talked about in previous shows, which I just had this conversation at my last meeting, is an income report. Having a goal of retirement, knowing how much money you want to have when you retire on a monthly basis, what age you want to retire. The $1 million question, and this is what they asked me, the other day, was how much money do I need to save and have in order to successfully have that monthly income for the rest of my life and the rest of my spouse's life in
Hmm.
case I die first. We have one of the best income reports, in my opinion, that's very client user friendly. It's called our Compass report. And it's so much fun, especially working with younger folks when they come in and maybe they're 25, 35 years old. They have another 30 to 40 years to retirement.
Mhm.
And we identify what they have now. And then my question is, looking at your budget, which no one has, by the way, the majority, you
Yeah.
know, let me know how much money you can free up on a monthly basis and apply towards your long-term and short-term savings. Then we put all those numbers in the income report, and that will tell me, yes, you can retire at age 60. If you want 5,000, 10,000 a month coming in, you can achieve that. Or if it's short and there's a shortfall, which I call, then how much are you short? What extra do you need to save on a monthly and annual basis to achieve your goals?
Okay. So that makes sense. And I think that's so good. But like you said, what's scary is the majority of people um, don't know these things and they aren't saving what they need to be and they aren't making the right decisions. They don't know
Right.
what their budget is, right? They don't have a monthly budget worked out, what they're going to spend on food,
Right.
gas. And I'll tell you, since my wife and I started doing that, a monthly budget, it makes when we do it and look at it at once a week or a couple of times a month, we have good months. When we
Yes.
let it slide for a month, we don't do well with our money. We spend way more. I
you
mean,
know,
so that's just it. And people don't like the word
wow.
budget. Well, spending plan. What can we spend on this? Look at it that way. That's a glass is half full kind of view, right?
Absolutely. And you just brought up something so important. I just watched a video the other day from a talk host, and he did a great job with this topic. You mentioned you and your wife, Tony, sit down normally once or twice a month and discuss your spending plan. We find in averages in America, married couples do not do that. And which is a big mistake. I'll
Yeah.
never forget having a conversation. The wife asked me, can you give me some advice? A younger couple, of course. And she told me, she makes a good salary. He makes a decent living and he's got a lot of debt in his name. She has no debt in her name. How should they split the bills? And I said, are you a LLC set up or are you a partnership and married? When you're married, you should bring your finances together. You should be
Mhm.
making those decisions and paying those bills out of that one
Together.
big pot of money together and put
Yep.
together a plan based on that. Because most couples who do not do that, and that's a different show, different topic, I could go on for hours,
Sure.
you're setting yourself up for failure.
Mm.
Now, In most relationships, Tony, there's usually one spouse that takes care of a lot of the personal bills. I'll just use myself for an example. In my household, my wife takes care of a lot of the personal bills. I take care of all of our business expenses. But we all have decisions with both on, okay, here's all the money coming into the, account. You know, here's what we need to pay. Here's what our budget, our spending plan reflects on a monthly basis. Here's what we have left over to save. So, very, very important advice I could give you if you're married or facing marriage is work together.
Yeah.
Or because right now, the number one reason for divorce in our country today, Tony, and what's the divorce rate over 50%, which is so sad,
Yeah.
is money,
Yep.
financial issues. And you would think 100% of the time it would be lack of money and the stress, which that's terrible. And that's part of it, but maybe abundance of. Maybe one spouse is making more than the other and overspending in certain areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that is true, and especially it's different for couples. So if you're single, it can be different, or if you've lost a spouse. But planning for couples is important, and I know that's something you've done a lot with your clients. You've helped a lot of couples plan their finances, plan for retirement, and I imagine at the year end, looking at what we need to do before the end of the year with our finances is making sure we're contributing enough to our retirement accounts. It's
Right.
kind of a time when people review their at work benefits, and working with somebody like yourself, right? That's top of my list is what do I need to be doing before the end of the year? Making sure I
Right.
review my situation with my financial professional, or if I'm not working with one, talk to one, right?
Absolutely. I would say the last quarter of each year should be probably the most important meeting you have, not only with your financial advisor, your financial planner, but also your CPA or your accountant,
Hmm.
and making sure that they're communicating. I
Hmm.
can tell you that in our office, our clients, the majority have the same CPA that we recommend. And they know what we know, and everyone's sharing information with everyone. So everyone's on the same page. So, very, very important for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. Now, what's something else that you think we should be aware of, or that you wanted to talk about that people might want to be thinking
Yes.
about right now?
Probably one of the most important things that I can talk about today, which, by the way, all those other items were important, is,
Hmm.
right now we're facing, the next, 45, 60 days, a major presidential election. There's
Sure.
just a lot of uncertainty in our
Yeah,
nation today, which is so sad,
it is.
which could result, and it has in the past, it could result in above normal volatility in the stock market. So, this is the perfect time if you haven't already. If not, call and set up an appointment to have your financial service professional look at your portfolio, identifying what risk you're taking. And we find with almost every new person that comes in our office, Tony, that's not a client yet, but once we meet with them, I would say 99.9% of the new people we sit down with, they're taking way, way more risk than what they should be taking. And that's based not on just my advice and opinion, it's based on the questions and the risk test that we give them and the series of all the fact finding questions we have. So, take a look at your portfolio with your financial service professional. Make sure that you're not taking too much risk, because if we have a couple or a few bad weeks in the market, that could decrease your portfolio 5%, 10%, 15%, which can be detrimental to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine. It can be very detrimental, and that's why you need a written plan in place, and you need to be working with a financial professional like yourself, Brad, because you're going to take the emotion out of it, and you tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Right.
And sometimes people are surprised at how good the news is. Like, hey, you could retire tomorrow if you wanted to. Sometimes it's like, hey, you got to save more, or we should make adjustments here. Sometimes it's, hey, you you've got yourself, you've got the perfect amount of insurance, you've got the perfect amount of savings, you've got a great investment portfolio, you're doing good. Sometimes it's like, hey, you're not on track right now, but let's get you on track, right?
Absolutely. Just getting that advice, getting that second opinion is so important, and being proactive. Don't
Yeah.
procrastinate. And I see a lot of people do that. And what you just said, just to add on to that, Tony, if I look back the last 5, 10, 15 years, I would say there's a higher percentage of people that we have spoken to that we give them good news. Yes, you can retire. I know you mentioned you want to retire in 2 years, maybe 3 years, but if you wanted to retire today and leave your job, you have the option to do that. And when we research and when we gather a person's information and prepare all these reports and recommendations, we're ultra conservative with our projections. We're not putting, well, if you average 12% on your money for the next 30 years,
Sure.
you'll be able to retire. No, we usually cut that in half or less than half with our projections. So,
So
uh,
you'll have enough money each month to pay the bills and to live on
absolutely.
and to make it last in case you're one of these people that people are living longer and longer. So I think that's fantastic. Now, before we go, let our listeners out there know how they can get these reports run, how they can set up that no charge consultation with you.
Yes, Tony. Call our office directly, toll free at 888-390-5277. Again, that's 888-390-5277. Or if you have any questions or want to set up an appointment and not talk to anyone live, you can visit our website, financialarmorshow.com. Again, that's financialarmorshow.com. And send us your questions. That's one of my highlights every week, is just getting questions sent to us and answering them. There's no questions that will ever be a dumb question. And
Yeah.
we'll provide you with an answer. And I can tell you, if I don't have the answer, we have a team of brilliant people throughout the country that we can pick up the phone call and get advice from them and information to share with you.
That's great. Yeah, I know that you work with a lot of senior portfolio managers
Yes.
and people in the financial industry, some of the top financial minds in the country, and get together at regular
Right.
conferences with them. It's so great. And you utilize a lot of these resources for your clients. I think that's also fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up, Brad. But
Yes.
at any rate, great show today. Some great information.
Yes.
Again, listeners out there, viewers, pick up the phone, give Brad and his team a call. That's 888-390-5277. 888-390-5277. And that does it for today's episode of the Financial Armor Show with our host, Brad Cooper.
Thank you, Tony.